Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. Tonight's program is going to take a look at Bronx children and how we can provide a proper foundation for their futures. Child care experts say that child care is unaffordable for 80% of New York City families. In fact, many families pay between $14,000 and $20,000 a year for child care for a child 5 years old or younger. Sadly, one report said that Bronx families spend more than 47% of their income on child care, which is the most of any county in the nation and way above the federal standard of 7%. Last month on our program, Congressman Richie Torres said the Bronx was ground zero for child care affordability, but he announced a new investment in HeadStart programs in the Bronx that is pretty darn exciting. Let's take a look.
You're familiar with the words of Jimmy McMillan, who said that the rent is too damn high. The same could be said of childcare. I mean, childcare is so expensive that 80% of New York families cannot afford it. And according to the Federal Department of Labor, Bronx residents pay the highest in childcare costs as a percentage of their income. Like, we in the Bronx represent ground zero for the childcare affordability crisis in not only New York City, but throughout the United States. And so given the crippling cost of childcare, I'm proud to report that I partnered with Grand Street Settlement, one of the finest not-for-profits in the city, to secure over $50 million to open 6 childcare centers in the Bronx over the next 5 years. It's a real breakthrough for a borough that has long been struggling with the crippling cost of childcare.
That was the good news, if not very good news, if not incredible news. And tonight we're going to examine the issue of childcare and how this Head Start expansion will affect families in the Bronx. Please join me in welcoming the Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of Grand Street Settlement, Mr. Robert Cordero. Congratulations.
Thank you, Gary.
Yes, pretty exciting times for you folks. And we welcome back to Bronx Talk a former Chancellor of the city's public schools and the visiting Senior Fellow for CEI, the Bronx Center for Educational Innovation, our friend Dr. Meisha Porter. Always nice to have you with us.
So good to be
Well,
here.
he applauded. I didn't even
I would do a standing ovation.
Mr. Cordero, let's just talk about why this is exciting for you. There is a child care crisis in New York City, and now you've gotten $50 million to open new Head Start centers in the Bronx.
As we would say,
if you ask me my priorities, that would be numero uno.
well, we would say, "Wepa," with that one, okay, for the community.
Absolutely.
Listen, this is great news for the Bronx. So appreciative to Congressman Richie Torres, who's been a good friend of the Bronx, been a good friend of children and families who are trying to access child care. He championed Grand Street Settlement's proposal, along with Dr. Porter and many others in the Bronx. And we're just really excited because this is a crisis that can be solved to bring high quality, affordable child care to every family, especially in a borough like the Bronx that needs it so desperately.
I don't want to say like the Bronx. There's no other borough like the
That's
Bronx.
right.
We are
That's why it's
individual.
the Bronx.
You know, I always feel like with these kinds of things, and you said it's a problem that can be solved, we just have to want to.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we know how to do it. Now, Grand Street Settlement has been in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, very, very famously, and any review of your work and the work of Grand Street Settlement would say, wow, this is a great place. Why the Bronx? Why did you and your colleagues say, well, if we're going to do this, let's do Head Start in the Bronx?
Yeah, thanks. So yes, we've been in the Lower East Side since 1916, so we have 108 years of history.
And you've been there all that time.
Yes, yeah, I just look good. It's the skin treatments. Look, we have an incredible Head Start model. Our Head Start model started when Head Start program began. It came out of the war on poverty in the late 1960s. We were one of the first Head Start programs in the city of New York that was community-based. And so we have deep experience over 50 years in working with children and families. I'm a Head Start kid. I think Head Start was more catalytic to me in growing up in the 70s than going to University of Chicago on scholarship, because that would not have been possible. Head Start is
So,
you know,
so,
a great
so why
program.
the Bronx? Simply to respond to the need, because it was clear from the congressman and from all the experts that the need is greatest here.
Yes.
Definitively. Look, in the Bronx, you have a situation where a family is 5 times less likely to have access to a Head Start program than a family in the Lower East Side. There are severe inequities in the distribution of early childhood programs, but particularly Head Start programs, which are some of the best model programs for children and families in the country.
Dr. Porter, I don't know if we're just being redundant. How big is the need, and from your perspective as a former chancellor and all the work that you've done, why do we need it so badly in the Bronx? What's the difference, for example, God forbid, we don't have it?
I mean, I think when you go to the places of greatest need is where you have the greatest impact. And one of the things that I was super proud of to sign on to support Grand Street coming to the Bronx is they were really thoughtful about coming to talk to us about what the need was and hearing directly from the people here. And you know, the academic problem we want to solve in education actually starts with our very earliest learners. It doesn't start at the 3rd grade exam. It doesn't start at middle school or high school. It starts by giving our youngest learners access to language acquisition, social interactions. And so coming to the Bronx and coming to a place of greatest need allows Grand Street and collectively all of us to have a greater impact.
I want you to speak, if you would, from the perspective of a teacher.
Yeah.
So the Bronx she applauded me. She's ready for that. The Bronx lost more than 500 child care programs during the pandemic. So the teachers in grade schools and even beyond, do you think they see the difference?
Absolutely.
And in other words, they say, well, you know what? And when you mentioned, you know, the social interaction of the kids, to me, that's paramount.
I mean, if you have a conversation with a kindergarten teacher, they can tell you the difference between their babies who come into their classrooms having had Head Start experience versus those who haven't. And I really think it's important to not only talk about the importance of what happens there, but the importance of the providers and the teachers in those Head Start classrooms, and you know, just the level of work that they do to develop the early skills that young people need to be a foundation for learning in the K-12 environment. I don't even need
That's why I said it's redundant.
It is not a sell. It shouldn't be a sell. How about that? It shouldn't be something we have to sell.
It's an easy truth.
It's an easy truth, and that's why, you know, we did pre-K for all in New York City, frankly, because there was an acknowledgement that, you know, the problem to solve, achievement gap, opportunity gap, was about addressing the needs of our early learners. And teachers will tell you, principals will tell you that there is
behave better.
They're
it's
socialized.
Easier to teach
they
them.
have foundational skills. They come with foundational skills, and it gives them a head start.
Oh, it actually leads right into my next question. So, you know, we have public early childhood education programs in schools. We have public and private early childhood education programs in schools. What is Head Start? Where does it fit in? And why is this so prized? Is this along with, or does that go into the pre-K programs, or is it just separate program? Just define it. And that's really for parents, because we really want parents to understand, you know, what programs they are, and maybe even get excited about bringing their kids into these programs, which is just so important.
Yeah, so thank you. So look, Head Start is the closest that we can get to universal childcare without it being universal, because we work with moms, families.
And by the way, we have pictures. Folks can show some of the pictures that we have.
I would love that. So look, it's a great program. I want to give flowers to former Commissioner of the Department of Education, Dr. Porter, because she was the one in the previous administration that developed the Universal Pre-K program. Much of that was modeled on elements of the Head Start program, which is the most proven preschool educational model. What's great about this for the Bronx, it is direct, congressionally appropriated federal funding that is sustainable, unlike city-funded
So
programs.
then maybe if the budget
Depends
changes,
who the
they would
mayor
cut
is.
it. I
Correct.
see.
Correct.
And what
Yeah.
about teacher availability and training?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing, and frankly, there's been a lot of dialogue about discrepancies in salaries. That some teachers say, you know, I make more if I work here rather than here. You're going to need quality people.
Correct. We have a great, I think because of Grand Street's reputation, I think because we're developing 6 new Head Start centers that will be, you know, completely different than what has been done before because of the Head Start investment and the level of quality. I think we're going to attract teachers. We're teaming up with CUNY from Ostos to Lehman and other schools to do develop that pipeline. And then with the closure of so many programs, there are actually a lot of teachers that have gone and are teaching in other boroughs. We want to bring them back to the Bronx. And last, for Grand Street, a good portion of our staff, we have over 60 staff members at Grand Street Settlement that are currently working in the Lower East Side in Brooklyn that reside in the Bronx. And
So it certainly makes a heck of a lot of sense for them to work in the Bronx.
Correct.
I want to just, we have a map, and this was your map. And now the centers are selected in these neighborhoods, or they're not yet selected in the
These are in negotiation. We're slowly kind of locking some of them in. Dr. Porter and I were at 1501 Jerome. I want to lift up
Yes,
New
New
Settlement,
Settlement.
another
Yep.
great settlement house right here in the Bronx. that
So,
we're
so the
partnering up
space
with.
hasn't been identified just yet, but that's what the process is, working with people like the people of New Settlement, et cetera. So
Correct.
then I just want to go review them all. 435 Westchester Avenue, there are 79 slots. And
Correct.
again, we put up numbers and say, well, 79 is not 100, is not 150.
Yeah.
Think of 79 families.
Yes.
And, you know, and there we go. And then further south, all the way down near St. Mary's Park, is East 142nd Street. Up in the northeast Bronx on White Plains Road, 10467, near the Botanical Garden. 67 slots, 59 slots on Washington Avenue in East Tremont. There will be a center, it looks like, near East 180th Street, and then near Starlight Park and 1357 Southern Boulevard, 51 slots. Why were those neighborhoods selected? Or it's broad enough that, you know, who was not selected would almost be more significant, because it looks like everybody needs it.
Yeah, no, really good question. So when we were developing the application to the federal government, to the Office of Head Start, the federal office, we wanted to make sure that we were in the areas of highest need, to Dr. Porter's point, but also most of these neighborhoods are child care deserts. There might be a universal pre-K program, there might be multiple, but they're serving 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds. There's an enormous gap in the Bronx for what we call, you know, birth to 2-year-olds, right? So newborns, toddlers, infants to 2, that's the most expensive child care. It's the hardest to secure. And in the Bronx, most of that is represented by family-based child care centers. We have another map that I don't know if we're going to show, but that shows about a dozen family child care centers that we're partnering with that are run by women, mainly women of color, who are entrepreneurs, and have maybe 6 or 8 kids in their homes. And so we're partnering with them as well to raise the quality of that.
I was just going to ask Dr. Porter about those kinds of things. A lot of people go to daycare and in small little schools and all that, and will presume that they're licensed and all those kinds of things. Well, what's your vision of those versus, you know, 3K, 4K, and Head Start? I mean, just give us the broad view of what works, what doesn't work, what parents should know.
Well, a couple of things. One, they all work differently, right? And I think as an educator, the thing that I believe in is choice for parents. Parents should have choice and options. Some parents are nervous about being in a larger setting, and so they want to select a smaller in-home model, which feels more familial to them. Some parents are like, we're ready for our kids to be in a classroom. And so I think there are pros for all of them. And the most important thing about all of them, and you note it, right? Like we are talking about spaces and places that are licensed and certified and have received training. I think our early teachers that are in these spaces, and we have to honor all of them as teachers in all of these spaces, are doing the most important work, and they are so dedicated to to our babies, right? The hardest decision you make as a parent, we've talked about this a lot, is that first drop off, right? I don't know, despite economic status.
Listen, I was a crier.
That first drop off, yes.
My mom, may she rest in peace, she remembers how I tried to clutch her.
Always on the first day.
Well, my daughter didn't cry, so I have an issue with her, but she was ready to go. But it is so important. We all remember it as parents, but we also remember it as students.
That's right.
Right? I remember, my line in the pre-K play.
It's so important, and I have to tell you, I don't always offer personal stories. My son, a lot of people know, is a TV news reporter, and he was in one of these open classrooms in grade school, and so where they interacted before they actually got down to their scholastics. He told me that when he goes to a fire, and everybody's running around, and he's got to figure out who to talk to. He said he uses the skills that he learned in those interactions with people, how to get their attention, how to be nice to them, how to talk to them. And he said, and to this day, as frankly a successful TV news professional, he says, I use those skills every day.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it's about. You brought us gifts.
Yes. So
Ladies and gentlemen.
Speaking of that first day at Grand Street.
Oh, there's perfect segue.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's called My First Day. There it is. Dr. Porter has it. I got one too.
So at Grand Street, we had a group of our 4-year-olds, preschoolers, with some teachers, with support of some teachers, develop a children's book called My First Day, The Grand Street Way. There's no crying in this
My First Day,
one,
The Grand Street Way.
but it really walks you through the perspective of a child on that first day, and a lot of it is based in the friendships, the environment, the support from the teacher.
And so if a parent is going through this, the child may not want to go. This might be a good thing to read to them beforehand, and then the child gets excited. Wow, look at what I'm going to get a chance to do, and have my knapsack on my back.
Correct. And
filled with crayons.
The knapsack is a real important first tool. It's really exciting to put that first knapsack on.
That's right. So just real quick, the book is also going to be translated into Spanish and Chinese. We serve many diverse communities here in the city, and it also has instructional guidelines and guidance from our teachers, from other professionals in education and preschool education on how to use that book for parents and for teachers.
Who's going to get in? Is there a I these Head Start programs? And how is all that? Let's just talk. I really, for parents, this is frankly really important.
There's no cost to Head Start.
No cost.
8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5 days a week. The beauty of the Head Start program, we work with the children, but we also work with the parents and the families. If mom or dad are trying to get back into school, we set them up on a pathway to CUNY. If they're trying to get work, we try to set them up with job training or with employment so that they can continue to lift themselves up.
Dr. Porter, what do you find that parents don't know? Like they'll say, well, we're both working and we don't really have the time, and bringing her there and all that. What do they need to know so that they say, you know what, this sounds like a good idea?
One, they need to know that this is high quality programming, first and foremost, which is what we all want for our children. Second, they need to know is it's free. Right? And with the cost of childcare, this is game changing for parents. And I think that the last thing that they need to know is that the centers and the Grand Street team and centers are they're open for families and parents to come and visit and see. So that when we talk about this first day, it's not really a first day, it's a first start.
That's right.
And so they parents should feel like this is a partnership.
The next book, sorry.
Okay, all right. I'm writing it.
Don't spoil the plot.
Spoiler alert. Announce here first. But we are talking about partnering with parents. The most important investment we can make in a city
right.
is in our children. And it has to be a collective investment.
What's the future? How big is the need? Can we, hello, Richie Torres, can we duplicate this? I mean, how do you see the universe of this?
I mean, I think Robert probably knows numbers better than I do on that, but I would say that there's great need across the borough. And there's also great opportunity, because I think one of the things that we all have to do is, to your point, is bring parents in so that they see programming and that they feel comfortable.
And you know what else?
Their
I have to say,
children into
between the
spaces.
parents, it builds community also. We're so
Absolutely.
fragmented, and you know, you have neighbors in your own building
That
and
you've
I
never
haven't-
met,
that you've
yep.
never met and you never talked to. Let's talk about the timing of it. So now you say the locations are not fully identified yet, although there are numbers of slots that I've read to the folks before. Where are we at? What are the next steps, and how are we going to get there? I want to get there.
Sure. So do I. We want to open up on Monday, except we're in the process of securing all of those locations, even the ones that you put up. We're actually exploring other potential locations. It's six
And you
different.
think the funding will spread? It's sufficient?
Yeah, well, we have
Depending
to
if
have
you have to
6
build out,
sites.
yeah.
Some of the sites that are listed may not work out. You know,
Right.
I'm negotiating with 6 different landlords for those locations, so it may not shake out there. But we are looking at those same neighborhoods.
Are these partnership locations? In other words, they may already have some facilities, or are you looking at new spaces? I don't know what new spaces there are,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. Some of them are. Some of them, like New Settlement on Jerome, but also we're teaming up with a
Yeah,
church.
New Settlement has a
Right.
huge facility.
Right, we're teaming up with a Methodist church in Tremont, and there are other standalone locations, but that are close to really high need areas and other resources. One of them that you put up on Westchester Ave is right across from the beautiful new La Central development, which includes the new YMCA. We've
And a
already met with the
BronxNet
Y,
facility
Yes,
down
correct,
there.
right
yes,
next to
yes,
BronxNet.
yes, yes.
So
That's
that's the thing that's wonderful.
Well,
Real-
that's very
Yeah.
exciting. Then as that fills up and becomes a community, to have that program steps away, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
yeah.
You know, Dr. Porter, I was just thinking about the possibilities and thinking about expanding it. What neighborhoods are there other neighborhoods you think about, or is every Bronx neighborhood?
Yeah.
How do we?
I think every Bronx neighborhood should have a high quality, early childhood
And the
program.
need is there. You
And
think we're not serving that?
I think absolutely no. We aren't. We have to close that gap. And the same way we think about K-12 seats, we should be thinking about seats for early learners across the borough. And we really should. And I think the map that we saw from Grand Street shows their kind of pre-work in identifying high needs locations. We need to do that across the borough in a very real way.
I just want to ask a more general thing. Do you have a sense of other cities? Like how is other, in your role as chancellor, did you get to hear that other people complain we need more Head Start?
I think, this is
I don't want to say
yeah.
New York City because
Yeah.
we know that you've been able to do some
Yeah,
stuff. But
it's definitely a national conversation,
Yeah.
right? I think, in rural communities, it's how do I get to, right? Like it's
transportation is a bigger, well, not that it's not an issue for
not
us.
that it's not, right, but I think
Watch what you say.
the problem sits differently in different communities, but it is a problem and it is a need to ensure that these seats are available.
And it's very comforting, and after doing the research for this program, I learned a lot about Grand Street. It must be very comforting that this is an organization because 106 years, they
Yeah.
put out little books, that really make a lot of sense. They did bring us pastries for the crew, that was nice. But it must be comforting to, not that there's anything wrong with, entrepreneurs or people who want to do it,
No.
but it must be comforting that someone like Grand Street is doing it.
And they support the entrepreneurs that are doing this. So I think that's what's important. And I'll tell you,
They don't see it as competitive.
it's not.
Oh, how exciting.
And this book Robert shared, this is from 4-year-olds. So it shows us the possibilities of what our babies can do when we make an investment in them.
Mr. Cordero, let's just start to wrap it up here and talk about the reality of people are watching and saying, wait a minute, this is good for my kids, this is good for my family, I want in. Goodness, having my children being taken care of from 8 to 6, 5 days a week at no cost is like manna from heaven. What do they do? How do they get involved? How do they get to you? What do they do?
Get on your phone, grandsettlement.org.
Grand Settlement, not Grand Street Settlement.
Not Grand Street Settlement.
Grandsettlement.org.
Grand Settlement, and just so we have a link actually that's available to get yourself on the list for early childhood services. One of my staff will follow up. The timing on all of this, it is going to take us 6 to 18 months, half a year to a year and a half, depending on the locations. Some of the locations we're completely building from scratch. Some of them we're just renovating a little bit, and we'll be able to move in quicker. But we will keep folks posted if they sign up.
I try to think specifically of the people watching. So if you're talking about, 18 months, maybe even 2 years. So if your child is 1 or 2 and you're beginning to have your conversation about what are we going to do.
If you're pregnant. Thank you. If you're thinking I was going to start. If you're thinking about having a child.
If you're planning your family.
Yes, you're planning your family.
Then start now.
Start now, because we have a home-based program, and this is the beauty of Head Start, where our staff will work with pregnant moms and the families to get them ready for entering their child into the Head Start program. The eligibility requirements are around the federal poverty level. Depends how many children you have, how much income you make, but this is really targeted there.
But reach out, don't hesitate. Dr. Porter, maybe 30 seconds left. You must be excited about CEI, the Center for Educational Innovation. Just tell us what it is and what you're hoping to be doing.
So I'm really excited to be leading CEI Bronx. And CEI Bronx is going to really be a hub for innovation, centering the school as the center of community and bringing together various stakeholders to think about how we support and invest in schools.
So that the school is not an individual, an island. That was the word I was looking for, but is really essential to the community. And just like it used to be when I was young.
Absolutely. Two things to look for. One, we're really excited to launch the Bronx Innovation Center at Middle School, Leaders of Tomorrow, Middle School 370, and looking forward to partnering with my friend here as we work to build teacher pipeline programs from within the borough to staff our schools.
You're doing what I was just going to do, and that's the point.
Yes.
Thank you both, because this is foundational for our kids and for our borough of the Bronx. Robert Cordero from Grand Street Settlement, Dr. Meisha Porter from the Center for Educational Innovation. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Mom and Dad. You're the ones.
Yes.
We also, of course, thank our producer, Rebecca Hemick. Our director is Will Guzman. The editor is Yenelsida Diaz. The cast of thousands who work with us in the studio. Next week, by the way, get this, we're going to do a Lehman College reunion from my class, from my years. We're going to be here. They're telling me I got to go. Good night.